Can't afford some of the top tier meta decks like Invoked, True Draco, or any deck that plays Card of Demise? Well, I've got 5 decks that are going to keep you on a budget and help you compete with the meta. Cimoooooooo! What's going on, guys? It's Cimoooooooo, and today I'm bringing to you my top 5 budget decks for the September 2017 format. This is a list comprised of decks that, if you only have about $100 to maybe $150 tops to spend on a deck, these are some really good options that are not only very budget friendly, but are going to allow you to compete with the meta. So we're going to get into that list, but before I do, I am hosting a giveaway for the MetaMats Way of the Warrior playmat. So be sure to check out the Gleam link in the description below to find out all the details on how you can win yourself this mat. But without further ado, we're gonna get right into it. Starting off with number 5, we have Dinosaur. Now, dinosaurs have kind of had to take on a new form solely because of the fact that the ban list was actually very harsh for dinosaurs in general. We had Miscellaneousaurus limited to 1, we had Danglong banned, and we also had Lithosygem banned. So, you know, when you kind of take all that into account, dinosaurs took a very significant hit, and the majority of decks that were playing dinosaurs were also playing Diagram, but Diagram's too expensive for what we're looking to play here. The new form that I think that dinosaurs are going to take is something along the lines of just pure aggro, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno Turbo, if you want to go ahead and call it that. This deck is still extremely aggressive because Oviraptor is still at 3, and Ultimate Conductor Tyranno is still at 3 as well, and those are 2 of the deck's extremely powerful cards. Not to mention you can start throwing in stuff like Double Evolution Pill, and one thing that we did get back on the ban list was Rescue Rabbit to 3. That makes a significant difference because this deck can now go full aggro, maybe take on kind of some old incarnations of Dino Rabbit in years past, but I definitely think that pure aggro Dino like Ultimate Conductor Tyranno Turbo is definitely going to be the way to go. The deck is extremely affordable because it's basically comprised of 3 Dino Smasher structure decks, and you should be able to pick up the deck for incredibly cheap and still have some money left over to buy yourself some significant staples like Regeki and things like that that might be on the more expensive side, but still play yourself an extremely powerful deck. So moving on to number 4, we have Lightsworn. Now, Lightsworn is maybe on the higher end of this list because there are a couple cards in there that are a little bit on the expensive side, but the thing you have to realize is that a majority of the deck was reprinted in Battles of Legend, and that's really good because not only do you get the deck for a very significant price in terms of a budget value, but also, you know, it's not just a bunch of commons, it's a nice hollowed out deck because everything in Battles of Legends was essentially an ultra rare. It's also worth noting that Charge of the Light Brigade is now at 3 on the new ban list, as well as Honest going to 3 as well. And now Honest, you know, isn't as good as it used to be in the past, but we are playing and considering the fact that this is a budget variant, so maybe playing the Honests might be the correct way to go because you can completely cheese your opponent because they might not expect you to be playing something like Honest in the main deck. Another cool thing is that because so many of these cards are reprinted in Battles of Legend and it brings the price of the deck down significantly, you actually have some room in the budget if you want to play cards like Brilliant Fusion and Seraphonite, which are much more expensive compared to the value of the rest of the deck. As it currently stands, 3 copies of Brilliant Fusion is anywhere from $20 to $25, and Seraphonite on its own is somewhere between 10 and 15. Now, if you're willing to spend that, you're not really going to be disappointed because the Brilliant Fusion adds so much potential to what Lightsworn is capable of doing, and it just really raises the deck ceiling to a whole new level. You have plays with Omega, you can even throw the Zombie Engine in there as well now that Shiranui Solitaire has been reprinted, and Minerva, of course, has been reprinted in Battles of Legend as well. That card's only coming in at about $8 to $10, and it's definitely a mainstay if you're going to be considering playing Lightsworn as your budget option. Now moving on to number 3, we have Kozmo. Now Kozmo, when you add it up, is probably the most expensive budget deck here, and the main reason for that is due in part to the fact that, you know, it did just win a regional when Zodiac was still powerful, but also due to the fact that now that the ban list is hit, Kozmo is looking like a very solid option in a bunch of other different variants. But we're just talking about pure Kozmo here, and the thing is, Dark Destroyer is still an incredibly big pain in the ass for a lot of decks to deal with, especially now that Whiptail has left the meta, because for the most part we're assuming that Zodiacs are no longer going to be relevant. That was kind of the big thing that was really hurting Kozmo's chances, because Whiptail was such an easy way to out Dark Destroyer, not only outing it but also preventing it from getting its effect as well. Now we may not be playing the Demise variant because Demise is about $30 a copy at the moment, but still being able to play something like Allure of Darkness is a very nice substitute at about $5 a copy. The other expensive cards here, you've got tin cans that are running about $10 to $12 a piece. Depending on how many Cosmojos you want to play, that might run the total up a little bit more as well. But other than that, everything else was reprinted in a gold rarity, and it's very low and cheap in terms of value. So aside from stuff like the Allures, the tin cans, as well as maybe something like Dark Eclipser as well, and maybe Dark Lady, depending on how many you want to incorporate into your build, Kozmo is a very solid option. And because you have cards like Cosmo Town and Allure of Darkness, you have a lot of draw power and the potential to kind of make the deck, albeit not the most consistent build ever, because something like Demise kind of takes it a little bit more to the top in terms of its variance, but it's still a very good budget option nonetheless. Now moving on to number 2, we have ABC. Now one of the big reasons that ABC has actually moved to a budget tier deck is the fact that Solemn Strike is actually getting a reprint only a couple days from the time of recording this video as a super rare in the Code of the Duelist Special Edition as a promo. And that's a really big deal because Solemn Strikes are still, you know, they're not the most expensive card, but they're still on the higher end. But now this reprint is definitely going to lower the price of that Solemn Strike, and, you know, that was kind of affecting the value of a lot of decks' potentials to make the budget deck list. But you take a look at everything else on the list, you know, you can get the ABC pieces, you know, for a couple bucks a piece. Gold gadgets and silver gadgets and Photon Thrashers are extremely affordable. You might not be able to get away with playing a Brilliant Fusion build because that might put you over budget, at least in terms of the content of this video, but you're still going to be able to have your Union Hangers, your Terraformings, and now you're going to be able to have your Solemn Strikes and Solemn Warning as well to have your supplementary trap engine to help back up something like ABC Dragon Buster. I'm really excited that I can say that ABC is actually a very affordable budget deck, and you can maybe get away with also buying a copy of Raigeki as well to also incorporate into your budget build. We'll have to see what happens, but this is definitely a very solid option for anyone looking to play on a budget moving forward. And now for our number 1 budget option, it's going to have to be Pendulum Magician, and the reason I say that is for a couple reasons. First off, Pendulum Magicians are incredibly consistent and also incredibly potent in the ability for what the deck is capable to do, but also because of the fact that the deck is so incredibly cheap, outside of one card in particular, and that is Duelist Alliance. Duelist Alliance has spiked as a result of the September 2017 ban list release, so this card is probably hovering around $15 to $20 now, depending on how you're able to find them. Maybe you got some friends that'll let them go for 10, but every other card in the Pendulum Magician deck essentially came out of Pendulum Evolution, meaning the card is only, every card in the deck is only about $1 to $2 a piece, so you're able to assemble the entire main deck for an extremely low cost, then maybe get your Duelist Alliances as well to up your consistency, and you've got a very solid tier 1 to tier 1.5 contender that you're able to build for under $100 to $150. And that's also including the extra deck as well, because the extra deck monsters aren't really anything just out of the ordinary, maybe other than something like Beals, but other than that, everything else in the extra deck is also incredibly affordable as well. So that's why I had to put it in number 1. It just makes perfect sense because not only from a cost perspective, but also because of how powerful the deck is as well. Now, if you guys notice, a lot of these decks, I would say maybe a couple of these decks also showed up on my top 5 meta decks for the September 2017 format as well, and that's really true, and I think it really says a lot about where the game is currently at, that in my opinion, that some of these decks that are top 5 meta contenders are also top 5 budget options as well. I think that's really awesome, especially since we're getting these reprints of Solemn Strike. Pot of Desires was just recently reprinted in the Megatins, so that helps you with a variety of these different decks as well. And ultimately, if you look at this list, 2 of these decks essentially are from structure decks, and another 2 of them are from non-main booster sets. The only one that came from a main series booster set is Kozmo, but because of the way Konami actually has given us these products, it actually makes these decks a lot cheaper substantially in terms of where the game has been in the past, and this is definitely something that you're going to want to capitalize on. But guys, that's it for my list. Let me know down in the comments what your guys' top budget options are for the September 2017 format. I'd really like to hear your thoughts. Remember, for the sake of this video, we're keeping it in terms of $100 to $150 because that's what I personally would consider budget. You have to spend a little bit of money in this game, but these options are definitely something that could carry you far. So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you found this video informative, consider backing me on Patreon, because just by pledging only $1 a month, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.